be willing to take notes. For our area director, our very wonderful area director does impose a requirement upon us that we must have a scribe in order to have a meeting. And so do I have a volunteer who would like to volunteer to get recognized as being the ADD scribe for IETF 123? And you will join a long, lovely list of people who have done wonderful jobs and have been recognized at past IETFs for being a scribe for ADD. We do not have chocolate, unlike Mock. Mock has chocolate. We do not have chocolate. We do have bottles of water in the back, and you can feel free to take 2 or 3 if you want to be the scribe. Just grab a couple. Anybody? We got one draft to discuss today. That's an easy scribe job. You just have to like write down anything we say to the authors and any action items. Oh, we have a Wes. Thank you, Wes.
I should point out that our AD uses AI bots to take his notes. So
he's coming.
Thank you, Wes, for Wes Hardiker has volunteered to join the long list of illustrious ADD scribes. Thank you. So let's get started today. Welcome to ADD at IETF 123. This is, of course, an IETF meeting. We operate under the NoteWell rules, so we would please bring your attention to be familiar with NoteWell. All the BCPs, we have all the best BCPs of any IETF meeting. We have the very best in this group, especially BCP 78, one of my favorites. So if you are looking for something to do tonight, go read BCP 78 and catch up on RC 5378. It's a great doc. We have really NoteWell, and this is, we are all friendly here, and one of the rules we've always had from day one of ADD is be kind to each other. So that's very much in line with the ITFs, really NoteWell, and be kind. We do not tolerate anything else. Meeting tips. By now, you should know how to join the queue. If you have not scanned, either use the local tool or scan the QR code, please do so now. The rooms we get assigned are dependent upon the rooms we have at this meeting, and if we don't get people doing it, we will end up in a hallway closet someplace at future meetings. Here's our resources for today. They're in the data tracker. We have the agenda there and other things. I'm Glenn Dean from Comcast NBC Universal. I'm one of the co-chairs, as is. Say hi, David.
hi, David.
Everybody's a comedian.
Yeah.
We also have an awesome area director, Eric. You've been with us for so many years. Thank you very much for your support and all the great work you've done for us and our great guidance you give us. Did you decide, would you like to make comments at the beginning or the end? Okay. So this is our agenda for today. We have primarily one thing on today, which is Tommy Jensen is going to come talk about handling encrypted DNS server redirection. That's a great title. I'm looking forward to what the acronym is going to be. We've had some good acronyms in ADD, and we need a good acronym for this one, baby. So, all right. So, agenda bash. Anybody have any agenda items that they would like to add or remove from this agenda today? Okay.
So as it turned out just yesterday, one of the things our agenda bash is that Eric at the end will be talking about next steps for the working group, because many of you will have noticed that it has been quite quiet for a while with only one draft active. And so we were going to have a discussion about, should we look at wrapping up, or since all the heavy lifting was done to get a group, should we kind of go into a period of dormancy? Just yesterday, we actually had somebody submit 2 new drafts into the working group, and I have unfortunately closed that page. But they are about using ADD in a couple of different contexts and IPCP, yeah?
Yes.
And so it looks like we do have some new work coming up on the agenda. However, Eric will be saying more later about that, and it is too soon at the moment, given that the chairs haven't even read the documents about making a call for adoption or what have you. So, but it does look like we will be having some more work coming up.
And if you did submit them and you're in the room, we did notice. So come see us maybe after the meeting, and you can chat with us if you're in the room. So with that, Tommy, would you like to come up and talk to us about that? And I'm going to navigate away from this and give you the slides. So there's the clicker. Give me a second.
All right, so a familiar topic to most in the room, I think, just minor update from further hacking away at this draft.
And to be clear, it is a working group draft. It's not an individual draft.
Correct. This is an
draft.
adopted working group draft. So the authors have been working on some more implementation because we heard the feedback for more examples. We planned some and then realized that we would rather do implementations in Rev once we actually know that's what the examples are going to look like, in case anything changes, which there is at least one thing we ran into that might affect it. So self-redirection is where from the server you're currently connected to, if you're attempting a redirection and you ask it for one and it gives back a set of IP addresses that includes the current IP address, then you conclude that this is a self-redirection. This is the end of the chain. You can stop here. And that makes sense in that specific context. But when going to implement the actual chain following, it became evident that what's the current server? Like if I get an IP address that I had followed from more than like from a link prior than the current one, I should probably stop there also. And so the suggestion that we wanted to raise here as a sanity check is when doing this, just keep a set of the IP addresses starting from the original that you've been following. And if you see any repeated, cut and stay at the beginning of the loop. And so I put an example there to illustrate where you start with A, redirects to B, redirects to C, that if C redirects to B, that you stay on B because that was the beginning of the loop. Alternatives may include stopping at C because every server along this chain, the server is required to handle a client that hangs around because they're all valid for the original configuration anyway. But it seems like the recommended approach would be go back to the beginning of the loop so that the redirection chain is at its shortest. But that said, open to opinions. And I'll just go forward to the last slide real quick when we come back to this one. We did not do a draft update for this time because of this, but the anticipation is we'll have a draft update for next time because we're hoping to have an actual up and running full implementation as opposed to the incremental that we're doing right now for various edge cases. So we're not asking for working group last call at this moment. And we welcome other implementations, spec bugs, reports would be appreciated. This was the only one that we found so far that was unexpected. Does anyone have any thoughts or opinions on this or any other issues? Ben.
Hello. I think a loop is a misconfiguration and we don't need to specify the client behavior. So we need to make clear that loops are not allowed. I think the client, if it encounters a loop, can, possibly we should include some language like in the event of loop, the client should select one of the servers that it has encountered. Right, it shouldn't like completely bail out and fail all DNS queries from now on. But the configuration it's looking at collectively is invalid, and so it should do something.
Would you say so? Am I taking away from that the server guidance ought to upgrade to a must about not deploying loops? Must not.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that's.
And then on the clients, you mentioned going back to one of the chain. are you saying that we should not specifically specify which one, that just we like from what you said, I'm envisioning a client may, like I'm envisioning mays from you saying we shouldn't over specify the client behavior in this case. Is that what you meant?
So I think the requirement for this, in this case, I would say the requirement is that the client must use one of A, B, or C.
Okay. But no strong opinion about one approach in a given loop being more appropriate than another.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about this is that for loop detection, I think that should probably be by name, not by IP address.
So what happens when a server wants to, because right now it's perfectly allowed to redirect to a server by service name, like that you can redirect to the same name. That's not a problem as long as the IP addresses are different because of the geolocation impact. Like maybe you don't have different names, but you do have different IP addresses. That's considered a different server, is what the draft currently identifies as instances in terms of detecting self-redirection.
Yeah. So, okay. I think I understand that this is the simplest loop of like, I'm just asking you to re-resolve the name.
Ben, would you like to take a few minutes to ponder your response, and we'll move to the next person in the queue? Instead of us sort of putting you on the spot of figure it out right now. Okay, Jim.
Thanks, Glenn. Jim Reed. I'm not so sure it's a good idea to say must not do loops. That seems to me a little bit like saying is mail clients must not send spam. I think the loop detection needs to be done on the client side of things. And I think the language there might be is to do some kind of loop detection or count the number of redirection requests and then terminate at that point. Not sure what the number should be. Well, maybe the clients should just make some predetermined basis on their own. But I don't see there's much point in saying to whoever's setting these systems up says you must not set up loops or advise them not to do these loops. But people will do stupid things all the time, no matter what it says in an RSC. I think the problem here is going to be on the client side, and it's the clients that need to take appropriate corrective action. Thanks.
So real quick to clarify, right now the draft gives clients the freedom laterally to decide if it feels like a chain is egregiously long that it can stop at any point, but it does not attempt to specify a number. Were you saying that we should try to give a suggested maximum and you just don't know what that should be yet, or should we not attempt to give a number?
I don't think we should try to do that. I think we just have to say that the client should do something to detect loops or an arbitrary long chain and then terminate the process at some point, but not actually specify a hard number there. I think that's the best bit.
Okay.
Florian?
Florian Oxer, Ripe Fantasy. In addition to what Jim just said, while you were talking about this, I scanned the security considerations, and it does not say anything there. So I would suggest to add something to the security consideration that the client should not or must not do infinite amount of work, and don't specify what that would entail, because, so yes, you have a loop here, but if you have an infinite long chain, then it would also do a lot of work. So you can sidestep it that way.
Good point. Thank you.
Lars?
Lars Ecker, Mozilla. So as a potential client implementer here, right, I want to sort of land on a combination of what Ben and I think Jim said, that, you know, I might abort this chain at any point because you've made me wait too long, and I need to like commit to like loading a page now, and so I'm gonna, you know, you can't really force me to go all the way until I see the loop. Likewise, if I do see a loop, I like the idea to take as an indication that I should make a decision, but I would like to have flexibility here, and this particular solution like makes everything land on B, which is maybe in terms of spreading the load, not the greatest thing, and letting me pick whatever I want to pick might be better.
But to be clear, you're not suggesting a specification of random, just literally don't say anything, let it choose.
Right. Client can pick one of A, B, or C. I think that's how Ben put it. Yeah.
Okay.
Florian, you're not back in the queue, are you? Are you out? Okay. Then the queue's done. Ben, do you still want to jump back in?
Hi. So I think self-redirection is actually different here. Self-redirection is effectively how we represent end of chain. So it is not an infinite loop. It is just the approved way to say you're in the right place.
Yes.
So yeah, that's fine. It just has to be clear.
Okay. That is helpful signal. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Okay, Eric, this is the ADD portion of the.
The AD portion. Yeah.
Sorry, the AD, yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Tommy, for coming. We are basically about to close the meeting. So, as a responsibility here, we made a plan with the two chairs that after the redirection draft was done and published, most of we go either dormant, I mean, we keep the working group open, but no more meeting at all, or closing. And this was kind of a plan until the two drafts came from a Chinese university. And they are about how to discover the DO server via, for instance, DNSSD or IPCP. IPCP, that's the thing for PPP, right? I'm not sure whether it's still very useful, but it's brand new yesterday. So if this working group wants to adopt it, wants to work with it, obviously the working group will stay alive for probably 1 year or more time to do it, because the draft seems to be very simple there. So I get a plan. I don't have a plan anymore, right?
So I guess the takeaway right now is for the group to have a look at the two drafts that are submitted, and if they have comments on them, bring them to the list, and we will discuss it. And then we'll see you in Montreal at ADD 124.
Maybe. May I propose as well to the chair to contact the authors?
And of course, Tommy, you still have the draft in flight, so we'll be seeing you at 124. So that's the plan for ADD going forward.
Yeah, of course, your draft, until it's published, the working group stays alive, right? Clearly.
So, and there's also, I mean, if for folks who may not be following ADD step by step, there were other drafts in flight that are sort of on hold. They are drafts involving primarily customer premise equipment or modems or gateways that want to have DNS, encrypted DNS resolvers. In order to do that resolution, they require certificates. And there's a separate piece of work that's been commissioned here at the IETF that they're chasing of how do you do certificate provisioning and deployment on CPE devices. At such time as that gets resolved, if they figure out how to do that, those other drafts would then come alive again. I assume that the authors would want to pursue them. And then, because that's a stopping block before the ADD as a working group can pursue finalizing and publication of those other drafts. So that's what the background information is on why we're saying like maybe go on a hiatus for a while. Okay. If there's no questions, I think we're done here. Oh. All right, Ben, you're on.
Hey, so there's been a lot of talk about potential rechartering of DNS op, trying to figure out what a new charter for that would be and whether we are going to organize DNS work a little differently. While we're having that conversation, I put in the chat 2 drafts that have been discussed recently in DNS op that I think are going to generate a lot of discussion and development over the next year. One of them is an adopted draft there that went forward and then ultimately came back and now is going through a wave of revisions. I think that there is a fair chance that that work will ultimately line up better with ADD's charter than with the DNSOP revised charter. And if not, I think it might actually be worth adjusting while we're adjusting the DNSOP charter, because that work is really closely lined up with ADD, which I view effectively as the center of expertise for stub to resolver communication, as opposed to operational questions about running DNS servers or resolver to authoritative communication.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Lars?
Lars Eckert, Mozilla. So on Tommy's draft, I think it makes absolute sense to leave the working group around while this is being finalized. I personally, I glanced at the two new drafts just now. I don't see personally anything particularly urgent or interesting to me about them, but maybe I'm in the rough here, so we should sort of, while Tommy finishes up, discuss them and see where we land. I think the third item that you mentioned, Glenn, which was the CPE question, that to me almost seems like it needs a recharter discussion. So, because I personally don't see this in scope for the current working group, and we might disagree on the words in the charter. But under that assumption, I don't see a reason not to close ADD, because we can respin a new working group to work on that problem with a charter that actually includes that and is focused on that, rather than like having something like stick around just because we might need it.
I will point out that the drafts in question we're active within this group already.
And I think I pointed out that we're out of charter back then too.
But I always refer to my area director as to the final column if it's in scope or not.
Okay, if you don't mind, Lars, I will reply from it. It's easier than working over there.
Sure.
So Eric Vang, responsibility again. Not talking really about the responsibility for ADD, because as you said, right, the new draft about the CPE thing is not really fitting the charter, which is the reason why there is a settled mailing list. And that's not a big secret. There may be a settled working group coming out or above for doing this. So there will be a home for those work.
Okay, got it. So I think that I would prefer that. So basically have a focused new effort on that work if we have consensus to do it, rather than like trying to. Anyway, I think I think we're aligned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lars. Tommy Jensen.
Tommy Jensen, unaffiliated. So I quickly read the DNSSD draft. And I don't know if the authors are online or not, or we'll review the call later, but I had some feedback. One, it creates a standard based on text records, and then proceeds to define a registry of keys to put key value store in the text record. And it looks an awful lot like a partial duplication of the work that 9461 does to define this in service binding records that doesn't reuse the ominous text record. So I would be really unhappy to see that specific definition put forward. One of the justifications and then separately, one of the justifications in the comparison table between DNR and this approach to justify the DNSSD based is saying that options have limited space versus being able to have an arbitrary length text record. I'd like to point out that options can be concatenated. So RFC 3396 says you put multiple instances of the data so they can be stitched together. So that is not a concern.
So let me just on the queue here and stuff like. I don't see the authors listed in the participants list, and so giving them a lot of feedback into a draft that isn't actually on the agenda may not be the optimal way to give that feedback. I really would send an email to the list, please.
Sure.
Because they might not hear it if it's here. Well, we'll try to do our best, but it's probably the better path to get their attention is actually on list.
Sure, and I can repeat it there. I just thought that, we might have a couple minutes to spare in our jam-packed schedule. Like, do you not want to discuss it here?
We do have time. But it's just,
Okay.
I think it's unfair to both the authors because they're not.
Sure. No,
They don't
definitely
seem to
will
hear-
repeat it verbatim on the list.
And I don't know if everybody's had. I mean, they're all not long drafts, but nobody's had a chance to read them. So I just want to make sure everything's fair before we. Jim Reed.
Jim Reid, just making a quick point on what Ben had said earlier, is the new DNSOP charter explicitly excludes the DNSOP working group doing work that's already going in existing DNS-related working groups.
Okay, Tommy Pauly.
Hello, Tommy Polly Apple. Sorry I'm late. Um, just with regards to, I know we're not going to discuss the content of those drafts that are posted, but I'd like to point out that like we do have a precedent I've seen where these other like bindings for how you express your encrypted DNS configuration in other protocols has typically been going out of this group. Like IPsec defined it for itself. So it kind of feels like if there's like a PPP binding, it makes a bit more sense to, I don't know if that's into area or who I don't know who works on PPP these days, but the fact that this group could close doesn't preclude that work from existing in other places, considering that all of the other recent instances have been going on elsewhere. Like we also have like Mask doing its DNS config with the same thing. So I would actually recommend that we should still work towards sunsetting here, and we still will, I think, should engage the authors. Like Ben does a great job of helping advise people on how to get the SVCB parameters right. And so, like, let's continue to do that, and like that's probably just part of the DNS directorate, etc., that can help people make sure they spell it right. And I'm sure everyone in the room would love to keep helping on that. It just doesn't need to be in this room.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Sarah. Oh, okay. Not Sarah. I'll try to. I kicked you out. Okay. Well, we have no queue. I thought we were done before, so before I jump in too quickly, are we really done? Anybody else have any last comments they want to jump in and share? You sit down. Okay, well, that's it for ADD at 123. Thank you very much for your time and your participation. See you on the list.